Welcome to day 27. What is stock volume? Today we'll be learning about two things. One is what is stock volume, and the second point is how do we use the stock volume to predict the selling or the buying points. So let's get started. Lot of people would hear this term stock volume but don't understand what volume actually shows them about the current position and the value of a business. So that's what we are going to discuss in this chapter. In order to understand the volume, I'm going to go ahead and use a company that's on the stock exchange, which is Bank of America. The current market price for Bank of America, the ticker symbol is BSE, is on the 19th of July 2024 is $43.16, and the volume is 27 million. You can see below we have a chart of the market price for the Bank of America. Now, if you have been taking all my lessons from the very first day up until now, you have probably noticed that I have never showed you a market price chart for any stock. And that's because I don't care what the market price of a stock is. I only care what I think the value of the stock is. All this chart tells me is what other people have traded this company for and where it is at right now. That really does not mean at all much to me. And as we go through this lesson, you're going to see why I have that general opinion about the market price. We are going to put in the sticker symbol for Bank of America in the trendline.com webpage, and I hit enter and it takes it to the top level page for Bank of America. So all we have to do is to find out how many shares outstanding are there for Bank of America. We just go to the financials here and then the balance sheet until we see this right here where it says shares outstanding or number of shares. Okay, and you can see I just highlighted it right there and it says 7.99 billion shares outstanding. So what I have done with this picture is I graphically represented how many shares there are of Bank of America inside of this circle. Let's just imagine that this circle represents an entire company of the Bank of America and that each one of those dots inside the circle is a symbolic of a share inside of the Bank of America. Okay, there are 799 dots inside of this circle that you are looking at. So that means that each dot represents 10 million shares there, which is a lot of shares, but there is 7.99 billion total shares inside of that circle right there. So when we look at the volume, the number that's listed, whenever you look up a company, that is the shares traded from one owner to another in a single day. So when you see the volume says whatever, let's say for example it says 10, that means that 10 shares were traded to some other owner for that given day. So let's go ahead and pull up the volume for Bank of America on trendline.com webpage. Here we are back at the trendline page for Bank of America. And as you remember, when we first came to this page and we went down and we saw how many shares outstanding were for Bank of America, and we found that there was 7.99 billion shares. Now, when we go up and we look at the volume, we see that the Bank of America has 27 million shares traded on this day. So today they had 27 million shares traded. So when a person would come to this page and they might just go straight to the volume and look at that and they would say, wow, 27 million shares were traded today. That number really doesn't mean a lot. It just sounds like a lot of shares. So we have to put that in a context. You got to go figure out what percent of that company that was actually traded. And so that's what we are going to do in the next slide. Here is the symbolic representation of all shares in the company. You might be able to see down at the bottom, I have got three little red dots. It should be actually 2.7 dots, but I made it approximately 3 dots, red dots. Okay, when you look at that, you can see that it's just 3 dots out of all those 799 green dot inside of that circle. Those are the people that are determining the market price. So when you take a step back and you think about those three little red dots, is the group of people that are actually determining the market price for the entire company for all those other shareholders that are holding their shares of that business. Only that small group is actually determining that price. And what you have got to keep in mind is those people are not determining the value of the company. They're simply determining the short term price of the company. So you might be asking yourself, how can we use the volume to our advantage? What is that we can learn from all these numbers? So here is what I'm going to show you on 24th February 2020, during the start of the beginning of the pandemic, COVID pandemic, when we look at the volume of the shares that were traded on that day for the Bank of America, we can see that there was close to zero point 0.5 billion shares. That is 500 million shares that were traded just on that given day. That's almost 6 to 7% of the entire company changed hands to the new owners. Okay, and that was the highest volume that Bank of America had seen in 5 years. So how could we use that bit of information to our advantage as a stock trader? Well, when we go to the price chart here, this is the price chart for the Bank of America over 5 year period, and the date that I just showed you where the volume was the highest, that it was for 5 years, is right here, is when the market price started declining abruptly. After that, 500 million shares traded on that day and went to lowest point. The market price came to lowest to close to $19 within a month on 23rd March 2020. So that should raise some interest for you, some curiosity for you. So what we can learn is that when the volume have a really large volume related to previous days or years or months, this means that the price is at a lowest or going to be lowest or going to be lowest abruptly or peaking. So let's go ahead and look at the Bank of America numbers on that day, March 23rd, 2020. So the market price was approximately $19.38. I'm just giving some approximations here. I'm not 100% sure. The book value approximate to around $29. The earning EPS for 2020 approximate around 1.9. So when you look at these numbers, in March 2020, and you would have seen that the volume just hitting all-time high, you would have known that this was probably the bottom of the Bank of America stock price. I know that's easy for me to say 3 years later, but when you look at the numbers, you look at the volume that was being traded, a person who is really a professional stock trader would have been able to identify this, and those were the people that were buying up all those shares. And I would bet you how many people were selling their shares versus how many people were buying. The number of sellers would far exceed the number of buyers, which shows you that you had a very few smart people out there that were not scared and actually knew the value of the company, and they were buying all the shares from the people who are scared and did not know the value of the company. You can use volume to predict some of these patterns. So the point is that use volume to your benefit. First thing that you need to understand is that you need to remind yourself that traders are only determining the price and not the value of the company. And the best way to understand is that think of that circle and think all those shares inside of it, and remember that only three dots were determining the price and not value. The second thing that I want you to take away is that use that volume to help you to predict right time to buy more assets or change into better position. Remember, when the volume is really high, it could also mean that the price is overvalued and the people are getting away from the stock or selling out because they feel that the stock is way overpriced. So when you see a high volume, It's telling you one thing. You either at the top of the chart or you are at the bottom of the chart, and that's for you to determine. And also, in this particular case, after that sudden surge in the volume, there was a sudden decline of price from $29 to $19.3 within a matter of 30 days. So this concludes day 27. What is stock volume? We learned about what is stock volume, and then we learned how stock volume can help us predict a buying or a selling opportunity.